Hello, I am back, and hopefully the second time is a charm. I know we say third time's a charm, but I'm really hoping second time. I will catch you guys up on what the topic is about, but I just want to try and add our guest in before we can go any further. Thomas, if you are here, let's try this one more time. Hopefully, we will win this time. Let's see. Let me try find you on my side as well. Okay, still not there. I don't know if you're watching, Thomas, but as soon as you log in, it says send a request. Oh, there you are. Found him. We found him. Crossing fingers and hoping.
Voila!
Yes, we made it.
We did it.
We did it. I'm so proud of us. I am so proud of us. How are you?
I knew I was going to mess it up, and I'm very sorry.
That's okay. You should have seen me the first few times I started doing lives. It was bad. Okay, so I'm trying to pin our comment and then we can go. Okay, how are you?
I'm doing great. Now that I'm here, I was having a panic attack because I was trying to send the request as fast as possible once I found you. And then in the other stream, I'm saying, hi, it's me. I'm here. But it didn't work.
I'm so happy that I'm your first person you went through this with. So the next time you'll know, and you always tell people that I'm the one who taught you. So
yes, well,
please
I
do.
can assure you it's probably going to be just as painful the next time I do this and the time after that, because I'm just so bad with technology. Yeah.
It is quite interesting times that we have to find ourselves conversing like this, but I'm happy actually that we can do this despite of what's happening out there, because it's always incredible reaching people, whether or not we can see them. At least we can still do it digitally, so that's pretty cool.
Well, it's really nice to finally meet you.
It's lovely to meet you too. I'm sad that you couldn't host when I did Miss Universe, because I've heard you've done it twice. You've hosted Miss Universe twice.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know
Moscow,
if you can still see me, Thomas. You are breaking on my side. Can you? Are we good?
Yeah, I can still see you. I can still see you.
Okay. You were breaking.
I
I lost you a little because of connection. That's good.
Okay.
I see you now. You're back. Okay, fantastic. Before I was introducing you to people as a news anchor and a member of the LGBT community, and that you were the first man to come out as gay as an anchor, and it was something that people weren't doing a lot back then, but you did it.
No.
Why was it so important for you to do that?
So this was in 2006 when I came out and I was in a national position. It was important then because I was kind of done with secrets and shame, the stigma of growing up gay and being afraid of what it would do to me professionally. Plus, I was in a long-term relationship with my now husband. We had been together at that point by about 5 or 6 years. So I was very proud.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll celebrate 20 years coming up in September.
Wow.
So I know we're old.
That's a very long time. How? Because you look 20. I don't get it.
Yes, we met when we were 27. We were both 27 years old, and we're very lucky because I had not been out very long, and I only had a couple of friends that were gay. And I remember the day I met Patrick. It was September 30th, 2000, and we were at a going away party. It was actually his going away party. He was in the process of moving from North Carolina to Philadelphia, and so I was invited to some strange guy's going away party, and it turned out to be Patrick. And so we met there, and I remember having this feeling like a crush, like an immediate crush, like you'd have in grade school, and I just hadn't had that, and I was nervous and kind of shy around him, but luckily it all worked out, and here we are 20 years later.
Yeah, you are. I mean, when you found out that legally you could finally get married, did the both of you, say, let's do this now? Like, how did you feel when that happened?
That was such a big deal, and it's such a great question because in 2007 and 2008, we moved at that time. When I came out, we were living in Atlanta. I was working for CNN, and then we moved to California. I got a job in Los Angeles, and in the election year when President Obama was elected in 2008 in California, they had Proposition 8. And that's basically because then the mayor of San Francisco, Gavin Newsom, who is now the governor of California, he had allowed for marriages. He had allowed for marriage licenses to be given out. And so Proposition 8 was born, which was to strip this right away from gay and lesbian couples. We didn't think there was any rush to get married at that time because we thought that no one's going to take this right. But, we're not a country that takes rights away from people. Yeah. We give rights. And so we never thought that we'd lose that access to that right. And then we did. Prop 8 won and we lost. And we moved then from California in 2010 to New York. And in 2011, marriage equality passed in the state of New York. And we decided then that we're not going to take a chance. We started planning right away to get married. So we got married in September of 2012.
That is so beautiful. And how was the reception like of you coming out, of you getting married? Because you said you were worried about, your job, what people would say. How did the reaction was the reality meeting what you thought would happen?
Yes, because by, when I came out, there was no talk of marriage equality. There was really no talk of a lot of distinction for LGBTQ rights. And there weren't a lot of other people that were out at the time. I felt it was safe enough to come out. But there wasn't a rush to think, oh, we're going to get married, or that we have that kind of moment to look forward to. By the time we did get married, there were many states that had already passed marriage equality. It was still a federal issue that was going to be ruled on by the Supreme Court. Eventually, in 2015, where the Supreme Court affirmed the right of marriage equality across the country, but the expectation did meet the moment. People were very happy for us, when we got married, and it was a big celebration from our families and so many people that I've worked with over the years, and Patrick's worked with, and my friends from grade school and friends from high school, friends from college. It was great.
Yeah. And you know what? I think we are where we are because of people who continuously, fight for rights, fight for people. And you are one of those people, that keep on pushing and fighting and making sure that the future generation doesn't have to face the things that you face today. And I'm saying that because I found out that when you were in Russia, for Miss Universe, you actually attended an event there that was for the LGBTQ community, and people were a bit harsh then at the time, but you went out and you did it anyways. Like, why the decision to do that? Because Paula was just telling me, she was like, what you did was so badass, and I personally think it was so badass too.
The opportunity was there for me to report on a lot of the issues that were taking place in Russia at the time, because of my job at MSNBC and having a show on MSNBC at the time of hosting. And when I wasn't rehearsing for the show, I was out trying to gather news content and report on stories that were happening in Russia. One example that I remember distinctly is talking to a journalist that came out on the air, and it had been scrubbed from the internet. You couldn't find it. So you couldn't find that time capsule moment of when he came out on the air, because the Russian government had made it disappear. And their stance was, we don't really have gay people. We don't have members of the LGBTQ community in this country. So it's really not anything to talk about. Which is just kind of, it's just like,
what do you even mean?
It's a very interesting way to go about not having to confront policy issues and to pretend like those people don't exist.
Don't exist.
But they certainly did, and they certainly do. And at that time, as well, in 2013, we did not have our act together in this country for marriage equality, and we still don't have our act together in this country when it comes to a lot of things, especially during this current administration, where we've lost rights for members of our community when we consider the trans ban in the military. So there are going to be issues globally, no matter what. Unfortunately, that we need to constantly stay on top of and battle, to put out these fires when they re-erupt. But it was important when I went to make sure that I was covering those stories, to bring that information home, to make sure that people in this country understood exactly what was taking place because of what was at stake here. We had a lot at stake at that time here, considering that so many states were not considering marriage equality, and so many places were considering defensive marriage acts, that a marriage is between a man and between one man and one woman. So I'm really proud I went. Patrick was with me the whole time, and it was an adventure. It was definitely an adventure.
I love that you see it as an adventure, because in my mind I'm thinking, aren't you scared in those moments of reporting real issues like that, that might really put you in danger sometimes? Because sometimes we get scared and we're like, it's not worth my peace and my sanity in my life, but you do it. Are you not scared in those moments? Like, what goes through your mind?
No, and who knew that time in Moscow would end up being so important years later, down the line for a presidential election. So it was quite the trip to remember.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything happens for a reason, I guess. So that's why you were there. I mean, you were there for Miss Universe, but also, I guess, you had to be there for that moment. When I was watching you were awarded, and we spoke about this earlier on, you got an award at the GLAAD. Is it GLAAD or GL? We spoke
Correct.
about that.
Yeah. GLAAD Award.
Yes.
It was the Vito Russo Award. Yeah.
Yes. So they gave you that award, and I listened to all of your speech, and it was so touching. You touched on something that I've been seeing, doing a lot of research and speaking to a lot of people about, specifically the youth, dealing with depression and suicidal thoughts, when it comes to them coming to the reality of their identity and trying to come out, or being scared to come out. And I love that you also spoke about your sister and how she was there for you during the time. How big of a problem is depression for the youth, and how important is it to have people besides them to help them process it?
Well, unfortunately, depression and anxiety, which I consider to be in two different silos that kind of parallel one another, for a gay kid can be pretty intense, because you grow up and you're inundated with images that are, basically just all straight. And when I was growing up in the 80s, and coming of age, puberty-wise, there weren't many at all. There were no real role models, and there was great stigma associated with being gay. There were no real graduation moments, and I mean graduation moments in life when you think about, I'm not going to be able to get married, or I'm not going to be able to have a family, I'm not going to have, kids or grandkids. You thought about that stuff then, because you're just going to have to be like this, confirmed bachelor that never gets married, and maybe has a friend that, you take and you call them your college roommates, for like 20 years, the family parties. That is kind of sad and depressing when you think about it. But the isolation that you feel as a kid, that's what really gets to you, because you don't have somebody, because you think that person is going to, stop loving you. For me, when I was a young teen, I attempted to take my own life, and my sister is the one that found me. And luckily she found me, and she was only a kid herself. She's less than 3 years older than me. But she saved my life that day. And thank God she did, because if you had told me then, that life for me would mean so much, would have so much meaning and so much achievement, you know, when I was that age, or that I'd grow up to host Miss Universe one day, I would have thought you were crazy. You know, I wouldn't have believed you. It's just one of those things. You look back, and I feel so badly for that kid that didn't have somebody, you know, to talk to. And even then, after a suicide attempt, I didn't tell the truth. I wouldn't totally tell the truth about what was going on because I was too afraid to tell the truth and too afraid of the consequences of what that would mean. And I thought it would mean people wouldn't like me. People wouldn't love me anymore.
This makes me feel like I can always do better. And so I really want to know, how can we be good allies? How can I be a good ally to the community?
I think, you know, we all have to remember, and especially in these times where we're seeing incredible things in news coverage right now, that's really kind of tearing at our heart seams as a country, that just because it's not happening to you doesn't mean it's not happening. And so we have to be there for each other. We have to be there to support one another, to listen, and yeah, when the time comes to be that ally. And it's one thing to do a hashtag or, you know, put up a nice post, but it's another thing to show up. You know, we've got to show up for each other, and it might not be happening to us at that very moment, specifically to us in that moment in time, but it is for somebody else, and it's going to take all of us banded together to make sure that we can stamp that out, whatever issue it is that leads to something that's unjust or unfair.
Yeah, absolutely agree. You said something so important in your speech as well, and you alluded to it earlier on a little bit when you spoke about not being able to see role models when you were much younger. And I want to speak about the role of media when it comes to, you know, representing the LGBTQ community in the right way, showing you, you know, for all that you are, and not the stereotype that, you know, in the past maybe has been shown to be. So how important is it for media to actually show up and say, here's a clear representation of the community? Because it's not just one thing. It's multi-dimensional and it's multifaceted.
Yeah, and that is just from you know, the representation factor. You know, when I was coming up and I, you know, wanted to be in this field, wanted to be a broadcaster, you know, and there was nobody out that I knew of. I was worried about what it would mean for my career, to be honest, to come out. But then I realized that there are other gay people, there are other lesbians, there are, you know, members of the LGBTQ community that represent themselves in newsrooms, whether it's in front of the camera or behind the camera. And that making sure that your colleagues and your friends at work know the real you helps you to then, especially in my capacity, want everybody to know the real me. You know, want to bring my full self to what I'm doing in my role, you know, as a broadcaster, as a journalist. It doesn't mean I'm going to demonstrate some type of wicked bias against telling a story fairly, but there is no reason why you shouldn't know who I am, and you know, I shouldn't be afraid to talk about my husband, and people shouldn't be afraid to put a photo on their desk of the person that they love. You know, that type of representation it's those small, meaningful things that really speak volumes. And that's what we've seen over the past couple of decades. We've made great strides in people showing up, people saying, yep, I might be gay, I might be lesbian, I might be trans. We're seeing much better representation in scripted television as well as unscripted, you know, with a reality show presence. But in scripted TV, I think we're seeing a much better representation across the board of what it's like. And those stories are compelling and fascinating, and there are many more that need to be told.
Absolutely. No, I absolutely agree with you. Speaking of which, I've been recommending everybody to go watch Pose. I don't know if you watch Pose. If you
Yeah.
don't, please do. I
No,
think it's such an.
I was just FaceTiming with Billy Porter the other night.
Everybody seems to be talking to Billy Porter except me, and I love him so much.
All right, we're gonna have to fix that. We will fix that.
Please, and thank you. Such an icon, such an icon. I want to speak about something exciting. As we're speaking about media, you just launched a new project called Gay Good News.
Yeah.
What is that about? Walk us through that. Like, what do you do?
Well, so we're so inundated with bad news right now, and that's because there are some very serious things going on in the world that need attention. But that being said, June Pride is typically the time of year, and we're living in it right now, is the time of year where the LGBTQ community gets a majority of its media attention because of events that are held globally. And so many events have been impacted because of the pandemic, and rightfully so that they were canceled, postponed. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't celebrate the great works and achievements of so many within the community, and straight allies as well, that we typically see this time of year. So the idea was just as simple as that, to celebrate members of the community that are doing special things, to celebrate those straight allies that show up when we need them, and just to kind of focus on the good that's taking place. And it's a half an hour show that I've been doing on Facebook Live. So I do it on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. It just started this week. So that's why I was talking to Billy Porter, because I'm trying to get him to be a guest on the show. I was filling him in, but we had Monday's episode, and we had Leslie Jordan on. And Leslie Jordan is an actor and comedian that blew up during isolation because of his Instagram page.
Yeah, I actually follow him, and he is hilarious. I mean, I've always loved him from Will and Grace, but
yeah,
it's fantastic.
He's so funny, and yeah, he blew up on Instagram during isolation. He has some 4.7 million followers now, and so I got him for the first show, and we had the best conversation and just a great time. He is so talented and so funny, and just kind of just naturally charming. And his Instagram videos they're just hilarious. Meanwhile, now he's got all this pressure on him. He's got 4.7 million people waiting for him to say something funny or to do something funny every day. But it's it's him at his best. He's having a really good life moment right now. So luckily I got him to join us. So it's that type of tempo, that type of a rhythm to the show that I'm trying to put out there. And I was working on tomorrow's episode when we got to speak earlier, trying to put together all the different moving parts that I need to make it work.
Mm-hmm. Is the show still up with Leslie? Can people still go in there and watch it? Did you save it on there?
If you go to gaygoodnews.com, you're going to find the episode on the page there. It's linked to our YouTube channel, which is also gaygoodnews.com. Or no, YouTube is just Gay Good News. Yeah. Instagram is Gay Good News. Twitter is Gay Good News. I've spent a lot of time trying to streamline all of these entities into one. But yes, if you go just to our website, which is Gay Good News, you will find a link there that'll direct you over to YouTube for the full episode.
Okay, we will definitely be watching. Any idea who will be there tomorrow, or is it a surprise, or that we can?
It's a good one, but I hate to jinx myself. I mean, I'd like to tell you. I will tell you this: it's a woman, a beautiful woman, a legendary diva. How about that?
Oh, okay. Okay, now I'm definitely going to be waiting to watch. That's good enough for me. I'm sure it's good enough for everyone. Woman, legendary diva. Okay, I'm definitely sold. I will be watching. I usually ask people before they leave what message they want to live today. Like I said, we are in such a terrible time right now with the pandemic and, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement. And a lot of people have been feeling very heavy, you know, myself included. Most mornings I wake up and I'm like, my heart is so heavy with everything that's going on out there. Is there any message that you would like to, you know, leave people with that are listening? Any words of encouragement, just anything coming from your heart to all of us? Oh, no problem.
We dipped out for a second. Yeah, two things that have actually gotten me through right now. One, if you're going through a tough time with work, or, you know, because a lot of people have become unemployed because of the pandemic, or, you know, and you know, I'm in that bunch. Don't forget why you started. Just remember why you started. And it's going to bring a little comfort to your soul to kind of reinvigorate you to just get back to the simpler things in life. And then the other thing, and I mentioned it here, is just because it's not happening to you doesn't mean it's not happening to somebody else. And so just think about that and pay attention, because right now it's a you know, call to action. All hands on deck. You know, the world needs us.
Yeah. Okay, I know I said that was the last thing, but this is the last thing. If you were a judge for Mr. Universe last year, would you have made me win? Would I have been your favorite?
Oh, by far. Yeah. Yeah. But I can always demonstrate that bias because I'm not the host. Yes.
Good answer. Good answer. Thank you so much for joining us, Thomas. I learned so much today about you, about the cause, about just everything that you stand for. Thank you so much for being a part of this month. You know, like I said to you earlier on, we are having a whole month hosting, you know, Pride, and just bringing in people from the community who we feel are influential and that we feel are absolutely necessary for society in the world today. So thank you so much for taking time and doing this with me. And we will definitely be watching Gay Good News.
Please do. And I feel so honored, honestly, I do, to be included in what you're doing for June Pride and for you guys to think of me. So thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for joining me today. I want to leave you guys with two things, and these are the two things that Thomas left us with. One, he said, remember why you started. And those are words that I too live by. You know, whenever things start getting hard and whenever I feel like things are just ridiculously overwhelming, it's always important to remember why you started. So whether you've lost a job, whether a family member has lost a job or is going through something, remind them to remember why they started. That always, you know, will push you to a more positive side. And the second thing that he mentioned was that just because it's not happening to you does not mean it's not happening. And for me, this is so true for two things that have been happening. The Black Lives Matter movement, where we are calling for people of all races, of all genders, of all ages to come together and to fight. Even if it does not affect you, it does not mean that it is not happening. You know, same applies to, I know in South Africa, so much is happening with regards to femicide, you know, women dying every day. And it's just become so emotional and overwhelming. And we're asking for men to stand with us, because just because it's not happening to you does not mean it's not happening. It's not just a woman battle. It's a battle that everyone should be a part of. So yeah, I hope those are two phrases that you remember. Remember why you started, and just because it's not happening to you does not mean it is not happening. Thank you so much for joining me. I cannot wait to see you guys again with another incredible guest with another fantastic topic. Thank you so much for joining me. Goodbye.